So, before we start anything, consider this your spoiler warning. Although this game has been out for about 6 years, there are still people complaining that it is being spoiled for them, so click off now or hush. With me finishing Red Dead Redemption 2 for the first time recently, I can finally say that I get it. This game has cemented itself firmly in my top 5 of favorite games of all time, and it might be contender for favorite game, but not just yet. But there are many reasons that it made itself into my top 5, so without further ado, let's get into it. So, firstly, let's talk about the graphics and how the game holds up. So, personally, and I might differ from many people on this aspect, I don't believe graphics ever need to improve past what this game has achieved, and I'd even say we can go back as far as 2014 with Assassin's Creed Unity. Graphics has already peaked. I don't think we need better looking games. I think art direction is much more important when it comes to gaming. But when it comes to Red Dead Redemption 2, this game is absolutely beautiful in its graphic fidelity. The amount of detail and care put into the environment. I mean, you can see, let's go over here to the sandy area. In some cases, you can see your horse's hooves, especially when you're in muddy or snowy areas. You can see your footprints, and you know, it's just the detail that they have put into this world in terms of its graphical fidelity is... This game is going to look fantastic in about 10 years time, and I don't think anyone would disagree with me when it comes to this game. But I think some of you might disagree that I say graphics don't need to be improved beyond this point. Secondly, the controls, in terms of how the game holds up, it is pretty responsive. There aren't really much that I'd say they could have improved on. I mean, every action you take, if you go into your weapon wheel, you don't need to open a menu to eat something necessarily. You can open up your satchel, and Arthur will have an animation by taking something out of his satchel and eating it. So, and the controls, like I say, they are pretty responsive. Nothing doesn't really happen when you don't want it to happen. There might be a few instances you can make a case for it, but all in all, I think the controls will hold up in a few years' time as well. I mean, the game is already 6 years old, and it still holds up very well. And performance, this game is absolutely... I've had no problems. I'm playing on the PS5, so it might be different if you're playing on PC or Xbox. But on the PS... Oh my goodness! on the PS5, there are no real performance issues. The game runs incredibly smooth. At what seems to be a constant 60 frames per second, which for a single player open world game, that's more than enough. You really don't need more. But yeah, I don't think the performance is really anything wrong with it. There might be, if you're on PC, I've seen people on the tube, many people have had a bit of performance issues on PC. Xbox probably holds up just the same as the console, as the PS5. I mean, on paper they're the exact same. Don't quote me on that. I'm just speculating. Environment. The environment is fun. The amount of different biomes we have in this game is very, very diverse. You have snowy regions, you have foresty regions like this one I'm entering now. You have almost like a heartlands type of vibe there that are like, what do you call it, outbacks? A very green deserty type area. You have snowy areas, you have swampy areas, and you have full-blown desert areas. And they blend into each other incredibly well. If we're lucky, we can... I mean, look at this forest. It doesn't look like you just suddenly switched into the forest. It blended itself incredibly well into the change of the atmosphere. The open world is also very immersive. There's a lot of stuff happening in this game all at once. I mean, animals have different responses towards you. You'll run into a predator that will stalk you, like cougars. Cougars just you don't see them before they see you. Just that's generally the rule. Same with grizzly bears. They'll attack you before you see them. When you spook a deer, the deer runs off. Well, most animals, if you spook them, they run off like they would in real life. And you don't need to, like, let's say this tree is a deer. You don't run up to the deer and it spooks. It spooks as soon as it hears or smells you. And just to prove that, you can see a little line coming off of Arthur. If you there we go. If you pay close attention, that little line, it's your scent profile, in which direction your scent is blowing. So that is a nice touch. The world is also very lively. If you roam around in a city, say Valentine or Saint-Denis, it's a lived-in world. There's much that could be said about other games' open worlds, but none of them compared to Red Dead Redemption. The people actually live lives. They have schedules, full-blown schedules. If you observe an NPC for long enough, you can see his entire schedule play out. Say a farmhand or a rancher or the blacksmith or the doctor. They close at certain hours, they open at certain hours. It is just incredible with how immersive the world is in that particular sense, and also very realistic. Arthur can run around. We have day and night cycles, obviously not realistic day and night cycles, but I mean the weather changes in such a natural state. Like when there is a storm rolling in, I don't think I have footage of a storm rolling in, but you can see the clouds coming over. It just doesn't suddenly become cloudy and starts pissing down rain. And over here, look at the river. Now, if you know anything about rivers, over there where the water is a bit deeper, the current is slower. The slower you get, I'm not jumping into the river to show you, but the closer you get to where the water starts speeding up and going down the rocks, you can see the difference when you are in that water and feel it with your player character, that it speeds up until there where it slows down again and you can somewhat control your character. So that is very realistic. And also, if you hunt animals, the hunting is probably some of the craziest stuff I've ever seen. If you shoot an animal in a somewhat lethal spot, but it doesn't drop dead, it will run and bleed out. And if you go and skin it, it doesn't have the most realistic skinning animation, but it beats most games in that respect, where you can actually see Arthur gut the animal, peel its skin off, and do it somewhat realistically compared to other games. Mission structures for the game are also, that is something that really I enjoyed it so much of this game, is the mission structure that you get. Oh, look at this. We have a nice potential loot here. So I'm going to go grab this loot while I talk. All the missions, the main missions and the side missions, when you approach and decide to do a side mission at whatever time you feel the most convenient to yourself as the player, it feels as if the mission starts playing out at exactly the right time. No matter when you decide to go and do it, it feels like it is accommodated to fit the time that you decide to do it, which is freaking fantastic. I have not seen other games do this as well as Red Dead Redemption. And like I said, it works for the side missions, it works for the main missions. It just feels right. When you decide to do your missions, it feels like the game adapts to you, and the moment the mission plays out is exactly the right time when you decide to do it. So that means you have the freedom to run around and do whatever you want. Now, keep in mind, with many of the side missions, you will be locked out of content if you go too early. I think I took it a little bit too soon. But certain side missions will become unavailable if you take too long with it. So there might be a few restrictions in that regard. But with the main story does not rush you at all. So you have the freedom to explore and do whatever you want at whatever time you decide to do it, which is absolutely fantastic. The quality of the missions. Oh, if you have played Red Dead Redemption, you will know for a damn fact that almost no other game comes close to the quality in mission structure and the cutscenes that play out, the intense stuff that happens during the cutscenes. Very little games match the quality that Red Dead Redemption presents. And I mean, that applies to, oh my goodness, that applies to side missions as well. I've never seen a game with as much high quality cutscenes and interactions in side missions as this game. Some of the side missions, you'll see a lot of people post clips that say the plot of Red Dead Redemption just keeps expanding, and that's because each and every side mission you participate in is part of the plot. Some of the main missions, especially towards the end, will take in account some of the main missions you have done and the choices you have made as Arthur, and really drive home some of the choices that you made. And that quality in side missions is just simply unheard of in many video games. You don't see that happening too often. And like I said, it's a very, very refreshing change of pace. I've been on a bender the last few weeks or months trying to find more high quality games because I've been a From Software fanboy for the longest, or for the past 2 years. And I've been constantly playing From Software games, thinking that no other games out there come close to their quality. And I'm very glad that I gave this game a try and listened to everyone who told me to try it. So the quality in the missions are fantastic. The intensity as well, something that is really unmatched, is there are some missions that just completely hype you up. Like the mission with saving Jack from the Braithwaites, where Dutch gathers the entire group and you walk into, that's a freaking intense mission, and it hypes you up to like, no, it's not, alright, we're getting into action now. And there are also a few nail-biting missions as well, where you'll really be like, okay, shit, we're in trouble now. Especially in Saint-Denis, when you face some of the law. I mean, some of the shootouts you experience there they are intense, very, very much. But it's very fun and very, very rewarding. But speaking of some of the fighting, the combat of the game, the combat might start to feel a little repetitive later on. It is still good combat. It's not necessarily bad, but it could be done better. But I have to give it to the combat. It does still feel like you are playing in a Western game. The combat is very Western-y. I mean, the duels you have, the controls you have with your weapons, like if you shoot a repeater, if you pull your trigger, you pull the trigger, but then you also have to cock the weapon again. Same with your revolvers. I think some of the pistols are the only semi-auto weapons, along with the the semi-auto shotgun. But with that aside, most of the combat, it feels like combat should feel realistic, but it is a bit repetitive later on. Mainly because I think there's a bit of a lack in variety of weapons. I mean, almost every repeater feels exactly the same. Almost every revolver feels exactly the same. There are a few standouts, but the majority of them feel the same. So the combat is not the most flushed out, but it is implemented very well. I think that is a good way to put it. If you disagree with me on that point, feel free to state your case in the comments. I'd love to have more input from other people. But like I said, the combat is done well, and you get sections where it gets very intense. So definitely it's not the worst combat. Like The Witcher 3, for example. The Witcher 3 its combat is way too floaty. Now I know in the books they describe Geralt as being they describe his combat style of a dance, sort of, but it's not implemented well. This is implemented very well, even though it gets a bit repetitive later on. Realism of the game. I've sort of touched on this when I spoke about the immersion, but take a look at this. Oh no, sorry. When you go into your player section here, and you go to Arthur, you'll see there you have the weight, which is average. Now, if you feed Arthur, and you feed him regularly, either his weight will be maintained at perfect, which he looks physically the best at perfect, obviously. But if you feed him too much, he gains weight. He'll become overweight. And if you feed him too little, obviously vice versa, he becomes underweight. And it has certain effects. If you are overweight, your health regenerates faster and you can basically take a bit more damage. And when you are underweight, the exact opposite with the stamina. The stamina regenerates incredibly fast. Certain actions that you take will impact your honor as well. Now, you have, I think, 4 endings in the game that are based on your honor and certain choices that you make. I haven't experienced all the endings. I've only experienced 1. But you have 4 different endings that I know for a fact that are based on your honor. And the simple stuff like running someone over with your horse will decrease your honor. Helping a stranger will increase it. Stuff like that. And I already touched on some of the hunting. There we go. See the deers? I was not even close to them, but they got spooked and they ran away. If you walk around in a town, you will be able to live in the town almost by renting out a room in a hotel, and you can generally immerse yourself in almost every aspect of this game, and you can fully do it. Look, I'm running around without my compass because I feel that is the best way to experience the game. I figured it out halfway through my first playthrough, and I wish I knew it sooner. It is so much more fun. You can pop up your mini-map there, but it just takes away from the immersion. The realism of this game is fantastic. I spoke about it in the combat section as well, with you actually needing to cock your weapons as you would with the actual revolver or a repeater or a shotgun or a bolt action weapon like a rifle. Rockstar has really just blown it out of the park with the realism in this game. It is not, obviously it's not as realistic as real life, but in terms of a video game, it gets damn close. Oh my goodness, I'm gonna kill this horse. I'm sorry. But yeah, in terms of a video game, it gets as close as it's gonna get, I think. I really don't think... Okay, he doesn't want to climb there. I get it. Are you dead? No. Okay, cool. But like I said, you can hunt, gather food. You need to take food to your camp as well to keep them fed, or you can just buy the supplies. But the fact that you can hunt, take it to the camp, and it will affect the storage amount or the food storages they have. You can help do chores around the camp that will increase the morale, it will increase your honor, and it will increase the interactions you have with the positive interactions you have with your campmates, your gang. And you can generally live as an outlaw. I mean, here's a fort. If I get any closer, they're going to chase me away. I think this is Fort Wallace. If I get any closer, they're going to chase me away. They won't immediately shoot at me, but they'll chase me away. And also, shooting people. If you shoot someone in the head, the amount of different animations you can get. Some people will still stumble around and spew blood out of their head and then drop after a while. Some of them will just immediately ragdoll to the ground. And this is also... Oh, look at this. You can see the weather starting to change very slowly. It's not all of the sudden it just changes. There's another encounter where if you go and save that person, there's a chance you're going to run into that person and he will reward you if you decide to help him. I'm not going to help him though.
For your future. $1 for your fate.
I'll just turn this guy's volume down. I want to give him something. Just for representation purposes. Can I help this guy? My honor pops up there and
A whole
That's it.
life, sir. You have followed the wrong star.
That's actually the first time I get that dialogue. Is he referring to Dutch? Are you referring to Dutch, Vanderlyn? I think you are. But anyway, this game has so much to offer in terms of realism and immersion. You can spend days playing this game without touching a mission, and you will have fun doing so. In certain temperatures, I almost forgot to mention this, in certain temperatures, you need to wear, if you go into your horse's items, you can see there you have outfits that are stored on your character. It didn't work now for me. There we go. You need to dress a bit warmer if you go into a colder area, and you need to dress a bit cooler if you go into a hotter area. The temperature affects the way your character maybe heals. It affects the stamina drain rate. You know, it acts as if it's really Arthur getting cold, which is absolutely phenomenal. Now, I'm going to build myself a campsite. I'll find you guys background footage. For this next section, we're going to talk about the story. Now, the story of this game is, it took me by surprise. Really it did. It starts off insanely snow. Many people hate the prologue where you're in the snowy mountains and it just starts off very slow. It introduces all of the characters. It sets the tone for, like, alright, the gang, we're in a bad spot now. It emphasizes that. And for that reason, I do not mind the first chapter. And then as soon as you hit chapter 2, the entire world opens up to you and things start to pick up pace very fast. I mean, you can definitely see the change in the mission pacing after chapter 1, and it skyrockets. It doesn't waste any time. It yanks you into the outlaw life immediately. And as the story progresses, you will most likely play the majority of your first playthrough as a complete degenerate and play low on it. That's what I did. And at a certain point in the game, Arthur will be diagnosed with tuberculosis, which in turn means that he is eventually going to die, because in this day and age, I don't even know if tuberculosis has a cure right now, but in that era, I know for a fact there was no cure for it. Maybe a treatment to make the symptoms a little longer and, you know, make it drag out a little bit. But once you know that Arthur gets tuberculosis, you know for a fact he's going to die. And there are many plot points after that starts pushing you towards the game. Really, like I said, the missions really, they push you towards making the right choices, especially some of the side missions. And you can see Arthur's mind change. You can see the growth that happens, the betrayals that happen during the game, and the plot twists. And you can see Dutch slowly but surely declining into a complete psychopath. And you can see Micah's colors becoming even more and more clear. You form a bond with your gang members as well, even the ones that I dislike, like Bill. I don't like Bill. I don't like Uncle. But you still form somewhat of a bond with them. And at the end of the game, when most of the gang turns on Arthur, it actually hurts you as a player, because you think to yourself, like, can you guys not see what is happening to Dutch and that Micah is leading him astray? Can you not see that everything is just going to absolute horseshit? And it baffles me that Rockstar has been able to put such a compelling story forward that almost every review I have seen mentions the story as being one of the best. I mean, the mystery that unfolds, like I said, the growth that you experience as Arthur, And also some of the other gang members as well. Sean was someone who irritated me. I can't tell you how much, but he grew on me, and his death it absolutely shocked me. I didn't see it coming. Arthur's like, this don't feel right, and Sean's like, ooh, mind blown. It really took me by surprise. You know, Hosea's death shocked me. Lenny's death. It was so unpredictable. You wouldn't say that, okay, Lenny is gonna die there. And the game just takes an absolute turn for the worst around the halfway mark, and it shocks you as a player. Now, like I said, I did give you guys a spoiler warning, so if all of this is news to you, I'm not even sorry. This game is old. I was spoiled, and it still hit me. That ending scene where Dutch steps on Arthur's hand, and Arthur's just like, Dutch, I gave you everything I had, and Arthur crawls to the place where he'd like to die, like facing the sunrise. And there's a part in the main mission that in the game that Arthur spoke to Hosea and his gang members about it, on how he wishes to go. And you know, he somewhat got it. And I saw a clip of Roger Clark where he said he wanted to give Arthur a peace. You can hear it in the final breaths of Arthur, that he had peace in that moment. And it is such a compelling ending to a game. And then you are shoved into the epilogue, immediately after that, playing as John Marston. And as you are introduced into the epilogue with Marston and Abigail, it feels, especially right after Arthur's death, it feels as if you lost a friend. It doesn't feel like you the character yourself has died. It feels like you lost a friend. And then when you drive with Marston and Abigail to Strawberry, as you drive there, the world just feels empty. The absence of Arthur's presence can be felt. And that to me was so freaking mind-blowing. And I sat there trying to contemplate and comprehend what I just experienced. And honestly, hands down, the best story I have experienced in video games so far. Now, The Last of Us Part 1 is also a first for me. I'm delving into that next. But just I can't see it topping this game. Really, I can't. So in conclusion, Red Dead Redemption 2 is a game that every gamer that loves RPGs, if you are a competitive gamer playing Call of Duty, don't bother. But if you like open world games, if you love RPG games, this is a must. If you have not played it yet, you need to play this game. This has been one of the, many people say it changes you as a man, and I don't think it goes that far. It's still just a video game, but it is much more than that. In the same breath, it is a work of art realized over years and years of genuine care in production, and you can definitely feel the love that Rockstar has put into this game. And you as the player, you just fall in love with the Wild West as Arthur Morgan. And Arthur Morgan is hands down one of the best protagonists in any game. I mean, he's up there with Kratos, he's up there with Geralt of Rivia, he's up there with Jin Sakai. Arthur Morgan is really, he is casting a long shadow for any protagonist trying to compete with him, for any player that has played Red Dead Redemption 2. So, with all that being said, thank you for watching. This game has been a phenomenal journey, and I'm going to play it maybe another 2 or 3 times back to back. I'm not done with it just yet. So, thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more Red Dead Redemption content coming your way. May God bless you all, and yeah, stay safe.